Hi everyone, my name is Saanvi Vinod. I'm a junior in Frisco, Texas, and today I'm going to be talking to you guys about coronary artery disease in South Asians. To be more specific, I will be examining the role of the apolipoprotein B biomarker. Like I said before, my name is Saanvi, and my mentor for this project was Ms. Jacqueline Holstein. Now, before we begin, I wanted to share with you a quick quote that I thought was fitting for this presentation, and this is by Mahatma Gandhi, a renowned South Asian Indian political figure, and he said that it is health that is real wealth and not pieces of gold and silver. And this quote couldn't ring more true because at the end of the day, beyond materialistic ideals and achievements, your health is what is most important. But unfortunately, Mahatma Gandhi actually suffered from severe hypertension and cholesterol issues, leading to the early deterioration of his heart. And that's a nice segue into my topic for today. So here's my table of contents. I will be going over the background, my research, evidence, discussion, and ending off with some final thoughts. So let's begin with a background of this topic. So what is coronary artery disease? There are so many different types of heart diseases out there, including things like myocardial infarctions and so many more. But coronary artery disease specifically is a very common type of heart disease, and it affects the main blood vessels that supply your blood to the heart, also called the coronary artery disease, or also called the coronary arteries. So if you can look at this image here, you can see that a normal artery is nice and wide and it allows smooth blood flow, but then we have a narrowing of the artery with the lipid deposit of plaque, as you can see in this image. And that lipid deposit of plaque is also called atherosclerosis, and it is made up of buildup of fats and cholesterol. And that is what inhibits the blood flow, which causes this disease. Now, what are the stats, right? How does this pertain to the South Asian population? So starting off with some World Health Organization data, South Asians account for over 25% of the world's population, so that's 1/4 of the world's population, but they account for 60% of CAD patients, which is an extremely alarming number. And furthermore, we can look at this additional statistic that India, Bangladesh, and Sri Lanka are the forerunners regarding this problem, and this population actually accounts for over half of cardiovascular deaths worldwide. And this statistic is extremely alarming, but what's even more interesting is that although this is such a prevalent problem in our world, not enough emphasis is being put on this problem to mitigate it. And that's what I'm going to be discussing today. So now let's get into the science stuff, specifically with biomarkers and apolipoprotein B. So biomarkers in general are measurable indicators of biological processes or conditions and play a crucial role in understanding many diseases, including CAD. Now within the biomarkers, we have lipoproteins, which are made of lipids and proteins, and these are all throughout your body transporting fats in the bloodstream, and they are characterized by density. So apolipoprotein B specifically is inside LDL, which is a type of lipoprotein. So for every one molecule of LDL, there's also one molecule of apolipoprotein B. And these ApoB levels indicate increased CAD risk by promoting cholesterol buildup and atherosclerosis. So in the South Asian population, you'll notice that many South Asians have elevated ApoB, and that is actually what contributes to their risk of CAD, which we will explore here more. So now moving on to my specific research, I will be assessing how unique lipoprotein profiles within the South Asian community affect the expression of the apolipoprotein B or ApoB biomarker leading to CAD events. So for my methods for my research paper, as well as for this presentation, I conducted a systematic meta-analysis, as well as I did a general study over the internet, just so that I'm educated on this topic, so I can educate all of you on this topic as well. Now moving on to my evidence and results. So I wanted to start off with the Masala study, which was actually kind of the baseline study for my entire research. So the Masala study, or the Mediators of Atherosclerosis in South Asians Living in America, is an extremely massive study with scientists from all over the world, and it investigates cardiovascular risk factors specific to South Asians in the US. So they found a lot of different statistics, but I highlighted two of them here on the screen, and hypertension is one of them, and it was found in 43% of men and 35% of women. And South Asian immigrants generally have a 2 to 4-fold increased prevalence in type 2 diabetes. Additionally, 49.2% of South Asians have a diverse lipoprotein profile. So although these statistics that I put on the screen are not necessarily directly linked to CAD, I still wanted to add them here because it just shows you how the diverse lipoprotein profile of South Asians has so many more aspects to it and can contribute to many other diseases, including type 2 diabetes, hypertension, increased cholesterol, and more. So this lipoprotein profile with elevated ApoB containing lipoproteins is what contributes to that increased concentration of atherosclerosis and buildup of plaque. So the next study that I did was investigating the lipoprotein abnormalities specifically within South Asians. So for this, I investigated the CAR study, or the Center for Cardiometabolic Risk Reduction in South Asia. And I inserted a table here just to give you a better visual representation, which was also actually present in my paper. So as you can see, the dyslipidemia, or the abnormal lipid levels within South Asians, are extremely high. So in men, there are 33%, and in women, it is 11%. And you can see that compared to the other ethnic groups surveyed in the screen and tested in the screen, you can see that South Asians have extremely high dyslipidemia and combined dysglycemia, and this is what leads to that CAD and early onset that we see in this population. So now investigating apolipoprotein B specifically with its clinical relevance in regard to this problem. So for this, I investigated a study by Mariola Rilek-Syke, who's a very prominent scientist and also a PhD, as well as her colleagues. And she discovered that significantly high ApoB levels were observed in women and men requiring PCI or CABG. And that's just a fancy way to say that they had a history of cardiac events. So there was actually two control groups here, which I can show you in the screen where I visualized it on a table. So the first control group was the patients with no history of PCI or CABG, or no history of cardiovascular disease. And the second group was the same, but it was a different population. And then for the experimental group, these people had a history of coronary artery disease or PCI or CABG, which you can see the abbreviations on the screen. And as you can see, the ApoB concentration for the patients with this problem was 10.4 in the first group and 10.4 in the second group. But then for the patients in the control group with no history of cardiac disease, you can see that their ApoB concentrations were 7.93 and 7.09. And so the increase in the ApoB expression at the mRNA level is 1.28-fold in the first group and 1.53-fold in the second group, highlighting how ApoB can easily be used as a predictive value to see, how are these people contracting CAD? Where is it coming from? ApoB is a great indicator of that. So now moving on to my discussion. What does all this mean, right? I just threw a bunch of statistics and evidence at you, but essentially what I'm trying to say is that the multiple studies that I just presented display how ApoB and associated lipoproteins play a massive role in fueling CAD within the South Asian population. Many people, when they think of things like coronary artery disease, they immediately think that it is due to lifestyle factors such as diet, exercise, etc. And although that is a contributing factor, the underlying genetic predisposition cannot be ignored here, and genetics is an additional factor that is very often overlooked. And as you can see from my studies with apolipoprotein B, that is a very prevalent indicator of CAD in this community. So some other exploratory papers, I have them here, just if you want to learn more about it. We have two papers that I think that explain this extremely well as well. So what is going on in the future, right? What are the ongoing efforts here? So regular monitoring of ApoB, so emphasizing the importance of apolipoprotein B level assessment alongside traditional lipid profiles for a more accurate evaluation of atherogenic lipoproteins. So here, what I wanted to highlight is the apolipoprotein B100 test. And this test is actually not offered at many clinics and hospitals today, but this offers a more precise assessment of blood level health than standard lipid panels. So those regular blood tests that you're going to your doctor to get, or the lipid panels that you get annually, those are actually not as reliable as the apolipoprotein B100 test at measuring and predicting heart disease. So if this test was used in more clinics and more hospitals, specifically for the South Asian population, we could see much more decreases in the deaths resulting from this problem, and we would be able to predict this earlier as well. So just to make this a little bit more comprehensive and so that you can understand it a little bit easier, I decided to show you a cause and effect relationship. So on the left side here, we have the causes, and on the right side, we have the subsequent effects. So first we have genetics, right? CAD's increased probability is caused by a unique lipoprotein profile, as I stated before in the presentation, and this directly leads to coronary heart disease. So next we have apolipoprotein B. ApoB and associated lipoproteins creates atherosclerosis early and leads to that rapid development, which leads to the early onset. So CAD arrives up to 10 years earlier in South Asians, which is an extremely alarming statistic. And lastly, adaptability, of course. Lifestyle factors does play a role, although genetics is more important. We can see that due to mass immigration, adaptation to Western society is creating changes in this lifestyle, which is why CAD is all over the globe. And to illustrate that relationship further, moving on to my final thoughts, first we have common cases. So we can see in South Asia, that's where the problem is from the root, of course. 1.7 million deaths from CAD in India occur here. And then, of course, the US is the second most prevalent place of this problem with mass immigration. So, in conclusion, the unique genetic profiles in South Asians significantly influence ApoB expression and contribute to that heightened risk of CAD that we see. And the way that South Asians exhibit this distinctive lipoprotein profile with higher levels of aggregation-prone LDL particles is what worsens this atherosclerosis and that buildup of plaque that we see. So the predictive value of the apolipoprotein B underscores the importance of these tailored screening and management strategies for South Asians to better address their cardiovascular health needs. In the words of Mahatma Gandhi, health truly is wealth. And by utilizing apolipoprotein B as a diagnostic indicator and therapeutic target for South Asians, together we can tackle this issue and pave the way for ethnicity-based healthcare advancements. Here am I works cited, and I'm now ready for any questions that you guys may have. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Saanvi. What an impactful and important topic. I'm curious to know whether, so you mentioned obviously that for South Asians in particular, genetic underpinnings matter a lot. It's not just lifestyle. But I'm
Mhm.
wondering, let's say if someone gets an early diagnosis that they have, heightened levels of ApoB, let's say, can lifestyle changes help combat or like offset those kind of genetic tendencies?
Yeah, of course. So I feel like genetics and lifestyle factors, it's kind of a hand-in-hand relationship. So if they're able to predict that they have higher levels of a polypoprotein B with the testing that I said in my presentation, then of course you can adjust your lifestyle to that by maybe cutting down on certain foods and things like that. But definitely genetics having that elevated level is what kind of causes the problem in the first place. So you can mitigate its effects, but I would say in general, if you have apolipoprotein levels that are above the recommended average, then it would be a little bit more difficult compared to a standard individual.